All right. There we go. 50 millionth time is a charm. Let me see if I can get on my other phone real quick and delete the one that I just made, not realizing that I had to wait for this thing to process. So, here, first, let's turn it this way. Yeah. Shit. All right. What's up, guys? I know. I get it. Sometimes your boy runs a little late, especially without this practice. We ain't been doing much practicing on YouTube. Irony, what's up? All right, let's look here on YouTube. See if I can delete that old one that was on there while this one is processing. I had to drop a couple megabytes off of it. 1 megabyte, really. You feel me? Here, let's see. See what these comments are. No, I'm not, Aaron. Don't you worry about that. We're leaving my case the hell alone. Because your boy... sometimes about that life. What's up, Isaac? How many people we got? 35 up in here. Cool. Let's see about this. Cool. Well, whatever. I'm not even going to mess with it. Forget it. All right. Timo DeVille. What's good, my dude? All right. Let's see if this is... Yep. Here we go. So, the last time I put some tapes out, obviously with Tattoo Face. Shout out. Tattoo Face. What's up? What's up, Bigfoot? What you doing up at midnight? And I know you ain't off tomorrow. So don't be giving me all of that bullshit. All right. Let's just get this going, right? So Rob went easy when he talked about George Christie. And we talked a lot about George in the background. And one of the conversations me and Rob had was after they had flown Rob off the mountain the first time, about a year before he passed away. And I hate this hat. Forget this hat, dude. Bam. And so Rob had me record this in case anything happened to him. And I've been talking about putting it out. Well, here we are. It's time to put it out there. Rob's my dude. That's my dude right there. So without any further ado, like with the last ones, I'm not going to sit here and like pause and do all that. I'm just going to let you guys listen to Rob. Then afterwards, if I want to make a video about it or I want to do a live about it then, or after we're done, if I'm still feeling up to it, we'll talk about it then. But I'm just going to let the tapes play through in their entirety.
But I'm the reason that he's out in bad standing. He quit the club. I already knew what he was doing, but I had a lawyer tell me that he's been taking trips down to Hollywood trying to get a movie deal. My lawyer told me, bud, and he's like, hey, George is fucking down. And I go, it's all right. We got lawyers in place for shit like that. He can't do it. You know what I mean? And then I told Sonny about it, and Sonny's all, it's all good. We got lawyers. And I go, that's what I told him too. I said, I'm just letting you know that he's making moves down there trying to make a movie about his life, which means he's going to be smutting it. I said, I put him out in bad standing because I already knew he needed an ending to his story. If you know George, he would sit there in church for 3 hours and talk about himself. You know what I mean?
That's all I see on TV.
Exactly. And he's still trying to make money off the patch.
So he was your president to begin with?
President when I went down there, but I was president when he left.
Damn.
And I put him out in bad standing because after 40 years in the club, they only sent one box down to the clubhouse of his shit, and his patch wasn't in it.
Wow.
And 40 years in the club, bud, you got more than one box of shit.
What the So he kept his patch?
So, no, he didn't. I got the patch back.
Nice.
He was such a girl about it, dude. It had original Betty patches, and he fucking tore each one of them.
What a dick. See, I never liked that guy.
Yeah, he was. I mean, I liked him at first, but I don't like him. You know, he fucking not only was he selling us downriver to stay out of fucking jail or out of getting busted, he would just well, here, arrest this guy. He's selling dope. It won't be hard to find. You know what I mean? Shit like that. And when I got out of prison, I knew, bud. I knew, because remember when I told you, it's not when you get busted. It's when you get out of prison and nobody's talking to you, like they're gonna tell or something.
Yeah.
That's how I knew that this dude wasn't right with this dude. You know what I'm saying? Because he didn't want to talk to me, and we were close. He was worried and found out, which I did when he acted like that. I knew what was up. But I stayed, and I put him out myself in bad standing. All them dudes that went to Santa Barbara, they left. They didn't stay there they wasn't in the fight. You know what I'm saying? They were trying to play it from a remote base. Dude, I stayed right there and did it myself.
How'd the meeting go down, man?
He came to the Oakland fucking a dude named Sam, who was a bail bondsman in Oakland chartered, who was an original LA member. That when they shut down Los Angeles, which George was an original Los Angeles member too, Sam was an original Los member, and the old vice president of Oakland, what is his name? What's that famous titty bar in Frisco called?
Oh God.
Anyways, the Aryan Brotherhood killed him in a bar fight in San Leandro. They were all three from, and Paul Hibbets too. He went to Alaska, but they were all LA members, right? Well, two of them went to fucking Oakland, one went to Alaska, and George went and started in Ventura, right? Fucking Sam, they told George to come to OM, and George threw in the towel. He's like, "I'm quitting the club," and I was like, "What?" I go, and another member was like, "We'll just go. I'll go like we always do when they call you." You know what I mean? And he's like, "Nah, this is it for me. I'm done." And I knew that he had something else on his. He was going a different route. You know what I mean? I didn't exactly know what at the time, but I just knew that he had a different game plan. And I said, "That's cool." I go, "You've been a member for 40 years. We'll give you a week to turn in all your shit because you put in all this time in the club, right?" Well, after a week, I only got one box of shit.
Did you vote?
He didn't want to read the letter that Sam sent back from the OM meeting that he didn't show up to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sam had a bail bondsman club, bail bondsman business there, and he was a good dude, you know what I mean? Stern and rough and big, but fair. Well, he wrote a handwritten letter and had one of the guys that was at the meeting bring it back and give it to George. Give this to George. Tell him it's from Sam. He didn't want to take the letter. I go, "What?" I go, "Take the letter, dude. What the fuck? Tell him we want to know what it says now." And he's like, I ain't taking it and I ain't reading it. And so the dude that it was handed to goes, "Oh, fuck it, I'll read it then." So he starts reading it, and it says, "You're a piece of shit. You're a coward. Stop oral copulating with the cops in Ventura, and do the right thing and fucking club. Get on, or come down here and face the music in Oakland." You know what I'm saying? So basically told him he was sucking cop dick and all this shit, right? Now at the time, we didn't know exactly that he was having lunch we knew he was friends with everybody downtown, but we didn't know that he was having lunch with the fucking chief of police every day.
Jesus.
You know what I mean? And he was having lunch with the chief of police and selling us the fucking river, bud. And he did it to a few of us, and he's been doing that shit for years.
Has anybody put that out?
Oh, it's out there. Everybody knows. That's what pissed me off when I wrote and I said, that biker news dude, he don't know shit what he's talking about. You know, that idiot that was the Black Piston that does the biker news online?
Yeah.
That guy's a dump truck, but he's like, "I don't think George did that. I don't think George is a rat." Well, I sent you the phone call of him ratting, telling on about that murder in Arizona and his son buying the bike of that murdered dude. And well, you know who sold that bike, which was the dude from Fresno sold him that bike, but he knew what it was.
Send me that phone call again. I'm going to do this story, bro. This will be the next thing I'm doing.
Not a video on it. Everybody was scared to talk on it because, well, now Sonny's dead, so he can't, Sonny just didn't play into the bullshit, George thought that Sonny was going to get kicked out of the club and he would be the cream, the one everybody looked up to. But the problem with George is his ego's bigger than the world, bud.
Yeah.
He only talked about himself in the meetings, and I just tuned it out after years, he didn't even come around the clubhouse that much, and everybody was already looking at me as the leader and asking me for advice and all this shit anyways, you know. I was well-traveled before I even got there. Sonny loved me, stopped talking to me when he seen me wearing the Ventura tab, and then, you know, I talked to him down in San Diego at the South Run, and I said, hey, listen, Sonny, me and you were good friends. We talked all the time, and I said, I didn't know there was beef with you two when I went down there. I went down there to further the club, you know, because I was going to start Santa Barbara, only he asked me to stay. So I did. You know what I mean? Because I'm a loyal motherfucker, you know what I mean? I said, but Ventura's been on the whipping post because of this motherfucker for years, and he's out now. And I put him out in bad standing because of this shit, you know what I mean? I said, what does Ventura got to do to get back in good standing? I said, because we've been on the whipping post forever. And he goes, well, maybe his son should go too. And I said, done. I'll kick him out as soon as I get home. And I did. I did do that. As soon as I got home, I threw his son out too, bad standing.
Did you guys vote on that?
We didn't need to vote, bud. I told his son that he had to start going with the rest of the charter when we went places, bud. You can't just hide here at home.
Yeah, that's a fact.
I'm going to speak for you every time we go somewhere and someone asks about you. He's at home. He couldn't make it. Fuck shit, bud. Get your ass off your ass. Get your ass off your shoulders and start making the run.
Yeah.
No more.
That's a part of it. That's definitely, like...
So he goes, I'm quitting. And I said, well, then, you know, you're going out backwards if you quit, because that's cowardice shit, you know? You're not quitting because you don't want to go nowhere. You're scared. And,
jeez.
Yeah, it was just a real shit show, bud. All those guys that were mad at George were mad at me because, you know, I'm taking the reins over here, and they felt like that was it. That should be them. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So now we're warring with Santa Barbara, and I get a call from an SFB after I fucked them 3 dudes up, and they're telling me that me and my charter needs to come to a meeting over there, right? And I go, oh, we'll be at the meeting, at the officers' meeting. I go, what the fuck kind of leader would I be if I led my guys into a ambush? I ain't in day one, homeboy. I said, but Ventura's about their business, and we'll handle it at the OM meeting. And them dudes are out of that standing, so anybody talking to them is putting themselves in that position. So it is what it is. And I said, but Ventura will be at the meeting, at the officers' meeting in Purdue, and we showed up down there and half our charter fought with Santa Barbara, and it still wasn't good enough for them. You know what I mean? So I called the other 2 charters that I was in, Fresno, in Merced, and I said, hey, I never ask anybody for favors. I said, but will you guys show up to this meeting with us and stand with us? You know what I mean? I said, I'll handle my business, but I said, I just want other charters to back me because these guys are trying to get the whole South backing them. At the time, there was only like 5 or 6 charters down south. You know what I mean? It's like 50-1 against the Mongols down there in south from Bakersfield down to San Diego. It's 50 Mongols to every one Hell's Angel. So we're kind of in the, you know, a bad spot there, but we held our own in our areas that we are in. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And they were like, oh, they didn't want to get involved. And I said, all right, Fresno, they called me when they needed a guy after Laughlin. And I went, and I was sergeant at arms of that charter for the 2 years that I stayed there till they got membership. And then I left there and I went to Ventura to help start Santa Barbara. Because I met a chick, a Jack Daniels girl that I had my first 2 kids with. She lived in Santa Maria, which is Santa Barbara County. So I was eligible, you know, I went down there to help get Santa Barbara going. Because at the time we had some prospects there, but only one of them made it. The rest of them got thrown out. But anyways, but George saw the potential in me as a leader and wanted me to stay where he was at. Wanted me to stay with him because I had a lot of connections in the club. I knew everybody, and he didn't go anywhere anymore really because he soloed himself out by not showing up to these meetings. You know what I mean?
Damn.
So basically, like using me to give him information so he wasn't in the dark about, because he couldn't go anywhere anymore. He only felt safe in Ventura.
So what happened with his son and you guys getting arrested over that safe?
That was an old prospect that shit was dealt. It didn't have anything to do with the club. That's what I was saying. It was a bullshit case. They were just fucking with us all the time. But okay. They arrested more than just me and him. See, when I told you that I sent you that thing about the bike being stolen?
Yeah.
Well, we had a couple of prospects. Well, one of the prospects didn't come hand in his shit because he was afraid of losing his motorcycle, you know? And we didn't give a fuck about the motorcycle. We just wanted our cut back, the bottom rocker that he had because he was a prospect. Well, he got all fucking fruity and scared and was called the cops and was trying to, you know, he was basically trying to hide, but he was living at his grandma's house, dude. And so that idiot went over there and took the motorcycle, had a flat tire, pushed it off down the road. Well, yeah, he told me to come get it, and we told him not to fuck with it. Aaron was his name. We told him not to fuck with it. And that dude already had did 10 years for attempted murder. And he just made member, and he thought he was going to go. He went and took dude's bike. Well, then, the cops don't say anything. They're just looking for the bike. So they brought a bunch of heat around the club, and long story short is he gets caught riding at the Sonny's book signing over in Santa Barbara, bud.
Oh, Jesus.
And gets arrested, and just a huge shit show, bud. And we told him not to fucking take the bike. So he didn't listen. You know what I mean? So it stirred up all kinds of shit. So the cops are kicking in everybody's doors, saying, "Oh, we heard the bike was here. We heard the bike was here." But it was at his house. He hid it in his garage or something. I can't remember. But they eventually found the bike. But they used the excuse to kick in everybody's doors, which is when George's door got kicked in, and they found that he had some dope. And he's all, "This isn't going to be a problem, is it?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's going to be a problem. You know how many people you fuck?" And he's like, "Yeah." And they're like, "This is on you, bud. You're going to jail." And he was like, "Can I talk you out of it? Can I help you out?" And that's when he started asking me about that member that was on the run from Arizona. "Do you know where that guy is?" And I go, "Yeah, he's dead, man. They killed him." And he's like, "Really?" And I go, "Well, fuck, man. He ain't around, and the feds, he's been on the #1 most wanted list for how long now?" I go, "He's dead, but they ain't never gonna find him." Because I kind of figured it out already. I figured it out that he's been selling motherfuckers down the river. You know what I mean?
So the recording of him snitching, what was the circumstances behind that case?
So it was part of that raid, right? That's how he established the line with the cops, right? With Medina, Detective Medina for the sheriffs, and a couple of fucking sheriffs. He was trying to talk his way out of the bust with the dope because he didn't want his name tarnished. You know what I mean? Get caught with fucking coke and speed. He's trying to work with the cops and throwing members from Fresno under the bus, throwing members from different areas under the bus, and basically you're not supposed to talk to the cops without another member there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So basically, he's doing all this behind our backs. Well, it might have worked with the police department, but not with the sheriff's department. But the sheriff's department's their dicks up there, so they kind of aired him out a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And then the guys from Santa Barbara got those recordings of him talking to the cops. So the whole thing was his son bought a bagger, right, from a member in Fresno's shop. This guy named Mike Lynch. He bought a fucking Harley from him that was like a full dress or a Harley Road King or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, all the parts on that Harley Road King came from a member from Arizona that they couldn't find. You know what I mean? But here's all this parts on this bike that Fresno sold to George's son. Well, George sold it. George bought it from the member that bought it from Fresno to help the member out in Ventura. He bought it from him, and he knew what it was already. You know what I'm saying? Like, he knew that it was all the parts on it were hot. Well, when they did those raids for looking for the other bike, they found that bike, and they don't just run the numbers on the motor and the fucking frame anymore. They hardly numbers all their parts on the bikes. So the cops started writing all getting all the numbers off this bike, and there's like 3 or 4 different number groups on this bike. And one of those number groups, some of the parts, is from a member that's missing in Arizona. How the fuck his bike parts on a bike over here in fucking Ventura? So they did the research and found out the dude's missing, like presumed dead. You know what I'm saying? Nobody can find this guy, but his motorcycle has obviously been taken and sold to members. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that kind of makes you accessory after the fact. So they're trying to put the heat on about this dead member's fucking motorcycle. And George is sitting there telling them who the bike came from and blah, blah, blah. And like trying to keep his son out of trouble and get himself out of trouble by giving the cops information. There's more than just one phone call, too. There's like 3 or 4 recordings of that. You just got it's harder to find online than it used to be.
And
there's also the phone call of Sonny calling 911 in Arizona on his wife Noelle, saying that she had a gun in the car and all that shit, which is how George was trying to smut Sonny up. But Sonny's a fucking 80-year-old man And this bitch tried to run him over with her car, and she has a shotgun in the car, or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Sonny up a little bit, but he was just protecting himself. So being a felon with 2 strikes and you know, having to put hands on a bitch trying to commit vehicular manslaughter is another story. You know what I mean? So he was trying to say that Sonny called 911 and all this shit. Well, Sonny said, well, your son didn't call 911 when he found your ex-wife dead in the kitchen? You know what I mean? Like, basically the same thing, you know what I mean? But, I mean, everybody knows Sonny ain't a rat, you know what I mean?
Right.
But we all knew George was fucking telling. So it didn't work and when George seen that all coming to a head and it wasn't going to go his way, he quit the club and was telling. And even the day I went to quit the club, after all, I fucked those street members up and all that shit, you know, and I was just like, I'm not going back to prison for somebody that ain't going to go for me. When I was that dude up and I pistol whipped him and the gun broke and I stuck it in his mouth and told him, open your fucking mouth, motherfucker. And he shit and pissed his pants. That dude's like, no, don't do that. And I looked up and I was like, this is going to tell. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And I just made the decision that night. I got kids to raise, and I ain't going to be like my dad and try to do it from prison. You know what I mean?
So how did that go when you hung it up?
I taught my old lady how to ride a Harley. I took her with me down to the clubhouse, left her outside on the bike, went inside, told them I was quitting the club, and we could do this the old-fashioned way or however you want to do it. And they said, nah, man, the open-door policy, it's all good. Took my picture, was walking out the door, and the fucking SWAT trucks were coming down the street. I think George had called the cops and told them I was coming down there to quit. So they raided the joint as soon as I'm walking out the door. Well, they found my out pictures inside the clubhouse, and they came outside tripping, dude. They're like, Rob, are you in the club anymore? Did you quit? And I go, yeah, that's my picture in there, and yeah, I quit. And they're like, well, what's going on? And I said, none of your guys' business what's going on. You know what I mean? I'm not a Hell's Angel anymore, though. And they were tripping, dude. And they said, well, we think you're high. You're under the influence. And I said, I'll piss test for you right now. So they took me back inside the clubhouse, and I piss test for them, and they said, you lied. You're not clean. You got weed in your system. I go, shut the dude. I go, that weed, really? I go, you guys said I was high on meth. Fucking high on meth, so off. And so they're all, well, you're good to go, man. And they had to let me leave. So, but I taught my old lady how to ride in case I had to box everybody, you know, like Angelo did, you know, how they did him. So I went there so I wouldn't be able to ride home if I had to fight everybody because I probably had some black eyes. So I taught her how to ride so she could drive me home afterwards.
Damn.
Yeah, but the cops had guns to her head out there. It was terrible, bud.
And so...
It was all good. I would go down there and hang out with them afterwards for a long time, dude. But, you know, when I quit the club, then that was the guys from Santa Barbara's opportunity to muscle their way back into Ventura, which they did. Because the other dudes, you know, they weren't gonna oppose it or fight it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So the dudes came back. The dude that felt he should be president anyways put me out in bad standing eventually. You know, they smut you up like, you know, they always do that, you know? It's just what it is.
Well, yeah, that way nobody can talk to you, so then you can't tell anybody.
Right, they can't hear your side of things.
Mm-hmm.
They all know what's going on. But when those other 2 charters that I was in, when I quit the club, they both came calling and they were like, dude, why didn't you come back here? We can fight everybody. And I thought, that's the problem, bro. Is I was there for you guys when you needed a man, but nobody was there for me when I needed the club. You know what I mean? And I just got a bad taste in my mouth about the whole club right now, and I'm good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Merced didn't give up for a while, dude. They kept coming and calling and coming to my house. I moved back to the Central Valley, like where I'm from, where Angelo's from. And I just been living a low life low profile ever since, bud.
And when did all that happen?
Oh, it's been 15 years, bro.
Damn.
I think I quit when the last time I got out of prison, and I did my 3-year high control parole with the 5B and everything, non-association. I did the whole in a sober living house, bro, because I had the worst parole officer, but he was a punk.
Mm.
And when I went back to the club, I ended up catching more beefs, and I still had to do time after I quit the club, bro. And I moved back to the Central Valley. I ended up still having to do like a year and a day in the joint.
For what?
For beefs that I had caught before I quit.
Mm.
I was able to plea bargain a lot of it out, but some of it, being a fucking ex-felon and everything, just, it was all kinds of bullshit, dude. But I was lucky at the time. It was because COVID was kicking off, and I got what was it? I ended up getting like a fucking year and a half, and I ended up having to do the last bit of it, like 6 months of it, on house arrest.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, so it was. I mean, jail and prison ain't nothing to me, dude. I could program like a mother.
Yeah.
I had a good life in prison. Probably a better life than out here,
Yeah, that's how I am too. Where it was like, doing time was really easy for me, bro.
Yeah, I can switch that. I can flip that switch and be an animal, bud. It doesn't bother me a bit.
Yep.
Senseless violence is what I get up and have with my coffee in the morning.
So Angelo was telling me about the dude that used to make the patches, Doc.
Yeah, Doc. Yeah, Doc was in a Massachusetts member that came over here, and I think he started the Highlands charter after he left SAC. So they started 2 new charters, Highland and Reading. So Buzz is the name of that dude I was trying to think of, the Lurk. Not Buzz, dude. You got to ask him about them 4 dudes: Buzz, Jeff, and, Jambo, and Festus.
Oh, well, he talked about Festus.
But I love Festus.
Yeah.
Festus was a straight up gangster, but he had so much elephant tranquilizer in his body when they did the test and meth that they said it would have killed a normal human being. He had enough of it in him to kill 5 people, bro.
That's insane.
He was functioning.
That's fucking insane.
Dude's a gangster, bro. He had a motorcycle shop there in Stockton, but dude, this is gonna make me cry, bud. That's how much love and respect I had for these 4 dudes, but like they were and there was another member too from Grass Valley, Terrible Terry. He was an original Satan slave. He was if he had it his way, there'd only be one Hell's Angel, him.
Sounds like George.
Yeah, but different, bud. He was just a gangster. You know what I'm saying? Like he was a thug. He set the bar high and expected you to set it higher. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not like George at all, because he wasn't a fucking megalomaniac, but he was a Hell's Angel through and through.
Hell yeah.
He just thought that he was the only one that was fit to be the best Hell's Angel there is. You know what I'm saying? Like he lived his life Hell's Angel.
Were you
about his motorcycle? You ride to live, and you ride to work, and you work to ride. You know what I mean? You ride to work and you work to ride.
Nice.
You got to have a job. Harleys aren't cheap, and neither are the parts. It's the most expensive thing you'll ever do in life.
Damn.
It literally drains you.
For
everybody. It's hard.
Were you in the club when they put Doc out bad?
No, I wasn't. I didn't even know that Doc is out bad.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a solid dude.
Yeah.
Why'd they put him out bad? Dude, the club is their own worst enemy. I swear to God, dude. They off so many good brothers, dude.
Yeah, me and him were talking about Bob V, and he said, no, there's even worse. He says there's Doc, who literally put in all this work so that everybody could have their patches.
Buddy went to prison I went to prison for the club. I took beefs that I knew my brothers committed so they couldn't get busted for them. I cleared the slate in Ventura when I got busted, dude. I said, I did that. Yeah, we did that. It was all me. Me and my crimey that got busted. Doc is a good motherfucking dude. I can't believe they did that, bud. What the fuck did he do?
I'd have to ask Angelo again. It was over nothing. Dude,
that's the same thing that dude that transferred from Richmond. I can't even think of his name. He's such a piece of shit. The dude had a good name in prison. Like, always people would get out of prison and ask about this dude and all this shit, bud. And he was a piece of shit, dude. He sold the whole fucking... He went over there and off half of the Nomads. And then when he was done there, he transferred down to Fresno and he off half of them. And then he hold on them all when the fucking beef came down.
Sounds about right, man.
You can always tell when the motherfucker's working for the cops like that, dude.
Well, yeah. Anytime.
It's usually too late because they've already been doing it for too long.
100%. But motherfuckers start acting funny, then you're just like, hey, man, what the...
Well, that's what I was saying. Like, when I got out of prison and all these motherfuckers that I rode everywhere with, and when nobody was talking to me, dude. I was like I had the what do you call that? The fucking flesh-eating disease or whatever, fucking...
leprosy.
leprosy, bud. Exactly. That's how I was like, man, this shit, dude. But I kept it real. I did my whole 3-year high control parole. I fought through that whole mother bullshit by myself, bud. Sober living house. Had to live in a sober living house for 3 years because I knew that was the only way I was going to beat the rap, make it off parole. And and then when I get out, they were all jamming me up about when I got busted in that motel with Brock, and they said that I had everything in that room was mine, even the purse that the pipe was found in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I go, of course everything's mine, dude. Fucking Hell's Angel, I was the one that they were looking for. I go, that bitch, it doesn't say that she flushed a pound of methamphetamine down the toilet for me while I was fighting them off at the door. 5 cops, me naked at the door fighting them off. I go, there's nothing about that though, huh? That bitch got a whole fucking dope flushed down the toilet, and I didn't get nothing. All they found was money, and they took a trash bag out of the trash and said that that's baggies. What the fuck? Packaging material, they said.
What the?
And a payo sheet, bud. The payo sheet wasn't even mine. It was this dumb bitch that was there. So I was like, I didn't fuck with anybody was saying after that point. I was just like, they're willing. You know, it's one of them things where I already knew where it was coming from. Them dudes from Santa Barbara that were beefing with George. That wasn't even my fucking beef, dude. If they were so about it, they would have stayed and threw him out themselves.
Yeah.
I did the thing out, and I got rid of his ass, you know?
So now George is just able to move around the cabin?
George is working for the feds, bro. He has been. That's why nobody will make a move on him. He's still living in Ventura. He still fucking posts pictures of him wearing a patch every day. Like, all the shit that he talked bad about people doing, he's that guy. You know what I'm saying? Making money off the club, not in the club anymore, but still living the dream like he is, trying to make movies about his life, still talking about other clubs in the area that, like, he had nothing to do with. Like, he makes it sound like he's the godfather of rock and roll. You know what I'm saying?
What the fuck?
Yeah. But I got it. Check this out. When he got busted, when they busted everybody for that firebombing and shit, it was the same exact thing you were talking about with the tattoo parlor, bro. The feds opened it. The feds put the people in there. The whole place was wired and videoed for sound. And it was the same. They did it just to get George, to send someone down there to either extort or, people up or something. It was all a Fed-funded deal, bud.
Jeez.
And the exact same fucking thing you were telling me about in that story that you talked about. They did in Ventura, but George's was the only, the Ink House was the only tattoo parlor on Main Street for fucking 30 years. And the feds put one right down the street, put Fed undercut, like an ex-member from Ventura in there as the tattoo artist, and a couple of other dropouts from other clubs in there. And the whole place was wired for sound. The feds were checked in the back room behind a two-way mirror. We're watching and recording everything every day.
What the fuck?
So when they raided everybody, I had already quit the club and was moved back to the Central Valley. I get a knock at the door one day. I go to open it. It's 2 dudes in suits. And I'm like, what's up? And they're like, are you Robert Smith? I go, yeah. They're all, the district attorney of L.A. County wanted us to give you this. And they hand me a thing for court. Like, they're what do they call that when they're trying to use the witness in George's case.
Oh, a subpoena.
I get a federal subpoena, dude, delivered to my door. And they're all, can we talk? I'm like, yeah, go ahead. I'm listening. No, can we come inside and sit down and talk? I go, sure. I let them in because I want to find out what's going on. You know what I'm saying?
Hell yeah. Information is power.
Right. So my old crimey had already rolled. The dude I got busted with the last time I was in Ventura and went to prison, I was in a case with him. Well, he was working for the feds already. And me and him had talked one day. He showed up while he was on parole, and I was already off parole. I was already president of the charter. He shows up down to the clubhouse one day in the middle of the night and comes in, and we're kicking it, do dope and all this shit. And he's like, he's telling me about he ain't going back to prison for George, you know what I'm saying? And this and that and the third. And I was like, okay, man, let's go. We'll go take him out right now. You know what I mean? And he's wearing a wire on me the whole time, bro.
Damn.
He's trying to get hooked up with dope. He said he's got a couple of things going on. Well, as soon as he's asking me about dope, I said, oh, man, I don't around no more, bud. I said, you know what? I said, I got a new hustle, dude. I'm going to become a fucking preacher, bud. I said, how many preachers did you see when we were in prison? I go, these motherfuckers, they got old ladies giving them their wheels, bud, with their house and all their life savings in it. I said, they just hand it over, bud, for that chance to be close to God. And I could be that guy up there talking at that pulpit, bud. I'm that man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I throw that whole pitch at him. I just did, something just came over me like I wasn't feeling it when he asked me to hook him up with dope.
Yeah.
I go, there's too much time in it, and honestly, there's no money in it, and too many people are telling. I said, so I ain't with it. I haven't been with it since I got out of prison, and I never will again. You know? Well, he was wearing a wire on me. So they were trying to take the info of me and him talking that night and wanted me to go testify in George's trial against him. They were trying to use me as a witness like they were using my crimey, right?
Yeah.
Well, you can't, once you get subpoenaed, you got to show up.
Yeah, I've been subpoenaed before.
You'll get, you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about. And the whole reason they do that is because they want you to lie. Once you, when the feds subpoena you, you can't go there and plead the fifth or say like, I don't recall, because they already have you and you know why they're there. They tell you when they come.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So that shit don't work. You got to get a federal attorney of that shit, bud.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't want to. You can't say shit like I don't recall or blah blah. You know, you got to think when you answer, very seriously. You know, you can't let them tie you up like they do in a regular courtroom and get you to stumble and say something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I skipped out on.
I said, yeah, I'll tell them exactly what the happened because I already knew. George didn't give them dudes the okay to go do that. Them dudes owed George money, and they came up with the brilliant idea, tweaking one night, that if they go light that joint on fire, George will forgive their debts. George never told them to go do that shit. He told everybody to stay the fuck away from that place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they didn't want that. They wanted somebody that was going to go with their thing. You
right.
know what I'm saying? So, but I said, yeah, I'll tell the truth, because George didn't send them dudes to do that. He told everybody to stay away from that joint. I go, them dudes owed George money, and they thought, nobody else told them, they thought that if they did that, George would forget their debts. And George had nothing to do with that shit. You know what I mean? So ultimately, I wasn't the witness they were looking for.
Yeah. Yeah.
They tried to threaten me for what happened in Laughlin, bro. They went 10 years back. Plus, it had been a long time. I was people that swam back across the river when all them Mongols got floated downriver,
Mm-hmm.
and I was at the barbecue right there, throwing their clothes in there and lighting it and burning them, destroying evidence. And that's what they tried to. I said, dude, go for it, bud, run it up. I said, that ain't holding no water. I said, you got video of me doing it, or is that just hearsay from the dude that's your witness? I go, either way, I don't give a fuck. I'll ride that one out. That ain't shit. That's what they tried to use to threaten me.
Jeez.
To lie and say that George did tell them dudes to do that. They didn't use me.
Yeah, they play dirty, bro.
They do, bud, and it's disgusting. It's disgusting. But,
I mean,
yeah.
look.
That's what happened with all that bullshit.
Look what they did just with my little video on YouTube, bro.
They tried to come and get me 3 times after I quit, bro. And then they, eventually they put me out. But see, them 3 dudes that I picked up and kicked out, one of them came back, and I know he's the motherfucker that called the cops that night, bro. I know he is. And he's back in the charter down there now, you know what I mean? Prospected again and was president last I heard, and the whole charter was sober and all this shit. And then one of the dudes, like a good friend of the club down there, his son ends up joining the club and got up on dope and killed himself, bro. And I go, not one of them motherfuckers tried to help that kid, man. You know what I mean? And he smoked himself because he felt they threw him out of the club. They probably took his bike and just left him on the curb. And I said, and it was too much for him, man. The kid was young, and they probably the ones that got him doing the dope.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I go, not one of them motherfuckers probably even went to his fucking aid and tried to help him or get him into it. Hey, motherfucker, you're gonna live with me, and you ain't around no more. You know what I mean?
Right.
Nobody did that. I fucking pieces of shit, dude. It makes me sick because I put a lot into that club, bro. A lot. Just like Angelo, You're making moves. You're doing things that'll change your life if you get caught, and you ain't getting no visits. They send you $50 a month. I told my charter when I was in prison, they tried to send me $50. I said, hey, use it to pay the fucking electric bill. I'm good.
Yeah, Caesar from he's out bad from the club because while he was in prison, they weren't sending him any money.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
And he spoke on it.
Yeah.
And they called it unbecoming.
Unbecoming, of a hell's angel.
Yeah.
Yeah, you and your mother. You know what I mean?
And he's in there for literally having a gunfight in the middle of a casino.
I'm telling you.
And
All right, there we go. What y'all think about that? And now everybody can go back, listen to it again, whatever. Hey, Sofa King, thank you. Yeah, he's been gone. Well, he passed away early November, so almost a year. Yeah, it's crazy, but it's a give and take when it comes to letting stuff like this out, because like somebody had said, you got to wait for at least all the good guys to be, I don't know, man, so they can't be charged, So, yeah, that's what Rob had to say about the whole George thing, about the whole indictment that George swears to God, I have it in my archives, but he never shows, Mario from Ventura, he probably has a beef that he can pick with Rob about what went on, because Rob kind of co-signed like, hey, man, George didn't know nothing about this in the grand jury. Rob told the grand jury George knew nothing about this. He would never tell them to do it. They did it on their own. Well, by saying that, that's kind of it. It could be perceived as a dry snitch. And that had to do with Mario because Mario was involved in that. Went down for that and everything. So, like, that's an old case. Yeah, he did. He had a stroke. He had a bad ticker from just, living that life. I heard Mario was a P, David, but he might be the VP right now. I thought he was the P. I'm not sure. I'm not 100%. I know he's building himself a legacy over there in Ventura, though, and he's a good dude. Nobody will say anything bad about him. Like, that's a good dude. But yeah, Rob had a bum ticker and was supposed to get like a pacemaker put in or something. They took him off his blood thinner, sent him home up on the mountain, and he just started throwing clots, and that was it. Oh, yeah, David. Yeah. Yep. He was the VP back then. There's a lot of Ventura members that don't get enough love, like from back then. And Sabian being one of them. Sabian was a Hell's Angels. That dude was a biker. He tore shit up. Archie, like there's some real dudes over there. But yeah, doing anything with the East Bay Dragons, maybe right now, I want to do something on the frame up. That was the Mongol owned tire and bike shop that was blown up, and two miners lost their lives in that. And George kind of ties into that where he said, oh, we tried to go and take the, no, you didn't, dude. Shut up. I can prove that. Terry Jack Larsky, what's up, playa? I've been watching you. But I think that's an important story. And it should be told. And I'm going to talk to the people obviously that know about it, that were there, that owned it, things like that, and get that out there. What's up, Rascal? Salute to you. So, yeah, man, that's what we got. We got George's thing, or Rob talking about George. Obviously, here, let's see if we can turn it sideways and still catch some of these comments. I don't think so. So, basically, you guys all know the story. Georgie gets caught with a bike that was sold to him or to a member of Ventura from, I can say his name, obviously. He went to prison over this. Mike Lynch. Mike Lynch being from Fresno. Mike, it was a West Coast officer at the time. He was all over the place, like charter, doing whatever it is that they do. And he brokered this sale to a Ventura member who sold it or owed money and gave it to Georgie. And Georgie gets caught with this bike. Well, it belongs to a missing member from Cave Creek, Sonny's charter. And basically, Mike Lynch found himself in an investigation where somebody is missing, presumed to be gone to the upper room. And you have George Christie saying, my son got that bike from Mike Lynch. A lot was going on between Cave Creek and Ventura at the time. Me and Rob, we talked about that. Rob, in one of the videos that we've already done, talks about Josh Harbor, who sadly went to the upper room in the middle of a bar full of red and white patches in Cave Creek, and Josh being a Ventura member. And then there was a member of Cave Creek took a round to his head when he was out front of a bar not too long after that. So kind of, everybody's kind of, I don't know, got their own theories on that, but we've already talked about that. So, Frank, salute to you. I seen you in there. The gingerbread man, the ginger beard. Yeah, that's me. I got one of them too. It's a Scottish thing though. Not really ginger. It's more Scottish. Yeah. Still being in Ventura and just floating around. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like he said, nobody's going to go touch that old man. Like, I've thought many a times, like, man, I should just go and just put the paw on him. But, like, why? He's 70-something years old. I would just catch a 10-year, 20-year beef or something for slapping that old dude. You can't be doing that. Not civilized, It's a frowned upon charge. Much as I want to. Bryce. Well, that's one take. That's one take at it. We're not going to. Look, just leave us that one right there, though. Who's being protected? Let's see. He's still, snitching and being protected. Yeah. And once somebody passes away, it seems like he has a brand new story to tell about them that never got told. And, I get it because I do kind of the same thing, but not really. Like, I don't wait for these legends to be gone and then just group myself in with them. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was there when this happened. No, bros. Stop it. He talks about art. Going to the upper room at the Queen Mary, right? But he wasn't there. Now, I've talked to men that were there from the other side, from the Mongol side. And, like, I kind of, the whole, hey, it was in two waves. It wasn't really like that. It was somewhere in cars, somewhere in the pack, in bikes, the ones in cars happened to beat the pack there, and then got jumped really, and tried to hold their own until the ref showed up and said, "No, this ain't happening." And then things happened, and Art lost his life. But George wasn't there. Uh, you know, I'm sure he probably talked to somebody who was there, but like, stop interjecting yourself into things. It's like he calls it a tactical withdrawal from Los Angeles when they had to abandon the LA charter. That wasn't a tactical withdrawal. You ran back to Ventura and held up there, and because you know, stop it, George. You don't have to make it like it's cool enough, right? The story can be cool enough without you having to add all this flavor. Like you just, I don't know. Is that right, Sofa King? Um, I mean, I guess if somebody was going to make a move into Southern Cali, Bakersfield has a lot going on right now, and then right up the street is the Mongols and Navagos in the same county, and then outside of that county is like thick. So, I mean, I guess I bet that was pretty cool to watch. Yeah, maybe they are lost. Yeah, maybe the Banditos are lost. I forget that uh, you guys won't be able to read the comments on this when it becomes a tape. Somebody said that the Banditos with Texas Bottom Rockers showed up in Bakersfield area, and somebody else said maybe they're lost. I mean, there are talks going on between at least three. I'm hearing upwards of all five of the big clubs. Peace talks. So, what's up? Two thumbs up. Rascal. Hey, Rascal, Josh, if you guys don't know, you guys should go check him out. Homie Hangout and Rascal Reacts. Josh is one of the smarter guys on YouTube who has done some time, turned his life around, and I enjoy him as a person. I enjoy his content a lot, but I enjoy him as a person. We have had many discussions in the background. We've thrown each other stories because it's like, hey, I can't talk about this, but you can. Things like that. A homie hangout, even though he's a Norteño or ex-Norteño, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's my dude right there. I don't give a shit about the politics of it. That dude's cool as fuck. Josh has always been super cool. So, anyway, there is other news too coming out of one of the New York charters. Let's talk about that. John the Baptist is no longer the New Rock president. He's not out of the club. He's just no longer the president of New Rock, which is crazy. I won't say who is because they don't wear their officer tabs for a reason. So I'm not going to be the jerk off that's going to, tell the feds on the internet. I'm not going to do that. A lot has happened. Let's see. Nicholas Newton. Somebody says, what's the story on that? Well, there's been a lot shaking up around New Rock over the last really couple of months. A lot of it surrounding it's a bunch of alphas being around each other, and sometimes men have one vision and the men around them don't have that vision, and they can get to feeling some type of way or whatever. That being said, there's a new charter. I won't say they broke off from New Rock, but they members of New Rock, 2/3 of the members went and started a new charter in the New York area, and left 1/3 of that charter there, run by JTB. There's six-ish members left in New Rock right now, and it's not that JTB got voted out. I don't know exactly how that went. I just know that JTB is no longer the president of New Rock. But it's gonna be interesting to see what unfolds when it comes to that charter. Yeah. I'm your Huckleberry. Yep, we always watch our backs. It is nuts out there. That's why I catch the cases that I catch, because I watch my back, But we don't worry about all that anymore. We're growing out of that. Whoever wants to eat a charge. Yeah. So I have a lot of inside information or intel, when it comes to a lot that goes on inside of certain clubs, down to having some of the wires that get sent between the charters. And it's amazing with the cases that go on, and then somebody has to ask for clarification on whether or not they can take a plea deal, what that entails, because they're looking at life, and then they can sign off on a plea deal for 15 years, and they're almost 20-year members of a charter, but they still have to ask for clarification so that they don't run afoul of the club. When I never understood, if you're going to get convicted on a gang enhancement, why wouldn't you just take a plea deal for half the time on a gang enhancement and be okay doing it? Like I'm a validated gang member, and I don't know, we don't roll like that. If you take a gang enhancement, you take a gang enhancement, I guess. I don't know. That's never been an issue. Just don't tell on nobody. That's the only issue I could see, but yeah. And George Christie mentioned me in his last video. Did he really? Serendipitous, isn't it? I never really go over there. James Hubbard, my dude. My hometown dude. James Hubbard, check this out. Sorry, guys. Sparky got stabbed yesterday in 5A by the Nevadas, by the NVGs, Nevada gangsters. They got him. I don't know if he made it, but I know they had gotten Largo, and I heard Sparky they hit yesterday. And if you guys haven't watched any of those videos and don't know what I'm talking about, that's obviously Nevada yard shit, and that's why I'm talking to James. Yeah, buddy, they got Sparky, and I heard they got him really good. But you can't check. You can't check online because they got the M8 locators all down. So hit your boy up. Let's see. Always well informed. I try to be. I try not to talk about something I don't know nothing about. And I don't think hearing it secondhand is really knowing much about. I try to talk to people that were involved. He is one of the most boring storytellers. George Christie is one of them. Been down for a whole long minute, but I mean, so with the Sparky thing, Sparky got caught. He was a Fed informant, and he sent somebody to the upper room, like knocked on the door when they came to look through the peephole. pulled out the mousecatool and just blasted it through the people, sending the person on the other side to the upper room. Well, he had a Fed phone in his pocket, and they were able to track him to being at that exact location at the time that happened, and that's how Sparky got caught. And then he ended up, obviously he was an informant, and for some reason they kept him around, and they used him to hit the guy who started their movement, basically, like a year and a half ago. And so they just hit Sparky yesterday. So they used him basically to take Grumpy out, was his name, to take Grumps out, and Grumpy lived, and then they just hit Sparky, and they sent Largo, the guy who helped Sparky hit Grumpy. They sent him to the upper room a few months ago. So that's an interesting story. That's one I'm working on. Oh, dude, who wanted to be president and put me out bad and smut my name up like we did. And he stopped at that and started talking about, yeah. So he was talking about Sabian, I can talk about that because there's nothing criminal about that. He's talking about Sabian. When he was talking about the Santa Barbara charter, that they were all coming back to Ventura because George was gone, and then he started bumping heads with the guys from Santa Barbara. That's Sabian and all them. They went off to start Santa Barbara. George left Ventura. Maybe they saw how much it is to run a whole charter like that. They come back to Ventura, and Rob's running Ventura, and they just kind of ran up against each other, and it sucks because Sabian and Rob should have been allies. Hey, D, without the oosh, just a heads up, if you're going to do some dirt, leave your phone at home. You might not know this, but they're pinging cells even with calls and your location turned off. Absolutely. I agree 100%. Better yet, try not to do dirt. That's where I live. Oh, I know that. But you too might not like that. It is a treacherous world, Sean Whalen, and it is a crazy life. And if you guys haven't noticed, I live my life to the fullest. When I'm out there, I'm doing it. And, sometimes it takes a second, especially James. James was around. I was losing people left and right. I was going hard in the paint. And James can co-sign on that for sure. Always leave all personal belongings behind. And that's why they say, oh, we got your blah, blah, blah. We got some kind of evidence against you. I'm like, righteous. That's right, James. Righteous as hell. I was doing it. It was bad. Sabian is a badass. And Sabian is a real biker. That's a biker's biker. That dude's about that life. I read some indictments on some clubs where yeah. So D says, I've read some indictments on some clubs where cell tower data is central to the evidence, i.e. Fresno, Sonoma. I mean, they destroyed Fresno and Sonoma using cell phones, showing them pinging here and then here. And that's how they kind of built their case for the jury. Now, when they bring Rain Man into it, all they have is two members in Laconia going to Rain Man's in the Boston-Salem area. That's all. They don't have phone calls between Rain Man. They don't have Rain Man going and plotting. And then what? They have Rain Man going to a party later on in Fresno, which he does anyway, or Sonoma, which he does anyway. He's always at their parties. He wore a Sonoma rocker, a side rocker. Like those were his buds. Yeah. Oh yeah, forging for sure. I already know. You know. Yeah. But yeah. Also, hey, if you're ever caught up in a case and they try to use your cell phones, I say they take your cell phone and they try to confiscate it and collect data off of it. Riley versus California. The Supreme Court ruled, and this is in their words, it is too costly of an invasion of privacy to take somebody's cell phone and collect all of the data off of that cell phone, looking for just a very small, minute part of that data. And one of the Supreme Court justices said one of the slicker things you'll ever hear. You cannot arrest a haystack just because you think there's a needle inside of it. And that's beautifully said. And so use if they ever try to take your cell phones for any reason when you're arrested, Riley versus California, that has been ruled on by the Supreme Court, and do not let them take your cell phones. Yes, sir. Your boy studies a lot of law because obviously I'm just coming off of a whole year of fighting my own case, my own Fed-sized case, where I had to not make videos for the most part and just I had to save my own life, and who else was going to do it but me, and I beat that case because I got down and dirty with the law, and I I scrutinized every piece of evidence that they allegedly had against me on something that they turned a jaywalk into just a crazy ass case. And they'll do that to you. They'll do that to you in a heartbeat. They don't care. You think any prosecutors, and when they start to take it personal, like that prosecutor did with me, like then it's all bad. Mm-hmm. So after, so I never heard that one. That dude that sent his wife to the upper room in Colorado left his phone at home thinking he was slick, and they busted his F-250. They can track anything now. So are you saying like the Wi-Fi in the F-250, or are you talking about like toll roads and stuff? Oh yeah, Tesla definitely tracks you. All right, somebody asked the critic, what were you charged with here? I can tell you. Let me see. Granted, I was in my own. I was in somebody else's truck. I was driving it, so. But I can tell you exactly what I was charged with. Let's see. Oh, I should look on my brother's thing. That'll tell me too. But here we go. All right. Where are all the reports? Here we go. I was charged with possession of stolen property, possession of paraphernalia, unlawful possession of a controlled substance, possession of a defaced firearm, possession of an unserialized banger. It was two different ones. Burglary tools for some lock picks that they found. Criminal attempt to commit a crime. Let's see. What else? I know there's more in here. Yeah. Oh, and possession of two IDs. Walmart has tag readers that go to Homeland. I didn't know that. I mean, it's a good thing we don't really make a living doing stuff like that, but so I was charged with all of that. Now, I had just gotten back from Mexico, done stem cell therapy, and I was like back for 2 days. I was feeling like hell. I had a fever, all that. I go with my brother. He drives us up to Walmart, and we get some Dr. Pepper and some oil for that truck. That truck belongs to the person we were living with at the time, and we were going to try to do an oil change on it and all that the next day. So somebody else in like a white SUV parks, I don't know, 6 or 7 spots over from where we're parked in this truck. We don't walk in together or nothing. We're not seen walking around talking to each other. None of that. Me and my brother, we don't get on our phones or none of that. This dude runs out the side door with a whole bunch of stuff. Well, my brother walks over to the Burger King while I'm finishing up the shopping, and I get in the truck and I go to drive over to the Burger King and get pulled over in the parking lot by police. And they're like, "You were with this dude." Well, no, we weren't. Everything in the truck totaled less than $100, and everything had receipts. That didn't matter. The cops called the dogs out, all types of stuff. They held me for 40 minutes on a misdemeanor pullover. I think the feds set them up to do it myself. That's just, maybe that's me being paranoid, but that's what I feel. The A-Dub Southsider thing had just happened a couple of days before in Ely, and I think that the feds set them up to hit me, thinking that they could try to draw me in somehow. And so what happens is this K9 officer thinks that his camera's on when it's off and that it's off when it's on. Records himself doing all the bad stuff, none of the good stuff. He plants evidence. He defaces the banger himself on the hood of his car with a metal implement. And then they defaced it when they popped the hatch open later at the police station, and they defaced it again, and they had to admit to doing it that time. He takes the keys to the truck, tries opening every white SUV in a county of like 7,000 people. So it's a small community. He goes to every hotel that's in the area and literally just tries to break into people's cars and stuff with this key. It's the weirdest, craziest thing. Like, this dude was the one on drugs. And they arrest me. They arrest me for everything that was found under the center console. Now, I didn't put it there. My brother legally owned both of those bangers. He had them there because the A-Dub Southsider thing had just popped off. He wanted to be able to have us protected should anything happen. Not mad at him whatsoever about it. You didn't have to bring all the other stuff along, but I love my brother to death. Decision was the decision. I don't even know if that stuff was his or not. I just know 6 hours later, the judge saw the tapes from the officer and released me with 23 failure to appears, released me on my own recognizance. Now, I still had to fight this case in court. The feds came in, they declined that day. They were there. The feds were there when I got to jail. So I got arrested at like 10 at night. At 1 or 2 in the morning, the feds are there. There's a Fed office for some reason in this little ass town. It's the weirdest thing. So the feds decline. But when the judge releases me at the next hearing at like 6 a.m., I was like, oh, okay, you're releasing me to the feds, right? Because I figured the feds picked it up and I'm going to the feds. And they're like, no, you're released. So the whole time I like walk out the door, you walk down these long halls when you get out of jail, county jails, and you open the door and you walk out. I opened that door. Boy, I'm looking everywhere for these feds. And there wasn't no feds to be seen. I was like, so I knew something was up at that moment. I just figured maybe the feds were on me, trying to indict me for something. Uh, I can't imagine what they would indict me on, but that's just kind of where my mind was. And then I got the discovery like, I don't know, 10 days later. And I start going through all the footage because they tried to dump all the footage. We're talking upwards of like 30 hours of footage from multiple cops from their, cruiser cams and all this. And they just dumped a whole bunch of junk, nothing, to try to cover up what really happened. And, when you're fighting for your life, or at least the next 15 years, you're going to look. And so I watched everything. We caught that cop talking to one of the sergeants on a cell phone at 2 a.m., picking up the sergeant's cruiser because they had to medically clear me to go to jail because I was sick. I just gotten stem cells. I was sick. I wasn't with it, but I was with it enough not to say nothing. So the sergeant's with me in the hospital. That's a whole different story what happened in the hospital with the nurse. It was crazy. And this canine officer goes to get his SUV that was left at the scene. Well, he's talking to this sergeant on the cell phone when he goes to get that, not knowing that the sergeant's center seat and dash cam were on. And we hear him go, he goes, yeah, they should be in the box right next to where we shoot the bangers by dispatch. And he goes, and tell them we're still legal. And then he goes to click the camera on, realizes it's on and goes, oh shit. Or no, he goes, oh no, and turns it off. Knew he was busted then because you can't crack those. You can't do anything to the dash cam, So it was like, you dumbass. This dude was, and his department somehow cleared him of doing anything. Forging thought, yeah, from 80 feet away. You could hear him pull up in another vehicle and hear his conversation the whole time he was walking up to this vehicle, getting in it. And it was hilarious, but at the same time, I got the best lawyer in that town. He's telling the DA, and I watched him personally, Thor Bauer, you're a monster, because our first court date, I walk up, I go, how you feeling this morning? He goes, like a bad motherfucker. I was like, I love you, dude. This is the lawyer I need. So I watched him personally tell that DA, who's like 1,000-year-old woman who wears costume jewelry and just has an attitude. She's a real see you next Tuesday. But I watched him tell her, hey, look, you tell me all the time how you got me bent over. I got you bent over the barrel on this one. He's like, you need to watch these tapes. And he kept telling her, you need to watch these tapes. Well, 8-9 months of fighting this thing, finally, they dropped the charges. So they used Brandon, my brother, who walked back up from the Burger King after he sees me pulled over and is just sitting there watching what's going on. He's a pedestrian at this point. And they arrest my brother, use him as probable cause to search a truck he was not in. And they can't prove he was ever in. So once they dropped the charges against Brandon, well, you used him as a probable cause to search a truck. You can't drop the case against who you used probable cause to search me and keep the case against me. The law don't work like that. So I filed a motion for abuse of discretion and malicious prosecution against the DA. That was my first motion. And I had 16 more motions coming down the pipe at her. And my lawyer showed her the motions before we went into the courtroom. And she says like this, she goes, all right, you take a deal for petty theft. You get 12 months informal probation we'll waive all your fees and fines and restitution. You don't have to pay us nothing. And you can leave. We want you to leave Colorado right away. I said, so what's that look like? They're like, you call him once a month and say you don't get arrested. I said, all right, we'll take that deal. They just wanted me out of there. They didn't, and they don't ever want me to come back because they know I know the law. And yeah, that once she saw what was coming down, because she can, I don't think she'll be censured for something like that, for abuse of discretion, but it's not a good look and it's very bad. So now we're suing that department and that officer for $1.5 million. We're suing the Walmart because Walmart workers searched that vehicle with the cop present. They opened the door and searched all of the things, all the bags, everything in the car. The cop didn't search any of it. The Walmart workers did. And none of them were AP. They were like shift managers. It was the craziest thing. So we're suing the Walmart, obviously, because it was off Walmart property. And I have receipts for everything. So we're suing Walmart for $1.5 million. And I'm suing the hospital, which is a totally different story, for $1.5 million. And then Brandon has his separate $1.5 million and $1.5 million against Walmart and the police department. So, yeah. And we'll tell you how that goes after it goes. You know, I'm not going to really jinx it or tell them what we got coming for them, but it's going to be glorious. They might as well just pay me now. Yeah. You know, we can save ourselves all that litigation, and these lawyers getting paid. They don't need to get paid. Y'all just give me the money so I can go buy a house, you know? Yeah. But you can't do what you did to me and get away with it. Yeah, Nicholas, for sure. The lawyers are saying it's going to be like a 5-year battle for the Walmart. They always fight everything. You know, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Well, forging, normally that's great advice, but we have this cop dead to rights doing what he did. Like he's on his own body cam doing this stuff. So, yeah. Yeah, well, it's going to court. It's going to civil litigation now. All the criminal shit is done, you know, and the feds have declined to pick any of it up, which they rightfully so. Like that cop set everything up. I didn't possess anything, and then he went to making a case on me, I guess. I don't know, man. Hey, thank you. Let's see. Danny Boy 408 saw me on Vice. Thank you. There's another thing coming out on Vice called Hell's Angels at War, and I'm on the first 2 episodes, I guess. I've done a lot of filming, and Vice has treated me good. You know, I can't complain. They put me up in hotels where I couldn't even pay for the incidental fees. That's how, like, it's crazy, some of these hotels. I'm like, man, you put me in a Motel 6, I'd feel more comfortable. I'm around people that I'm used to being around, you know. I'm sure soon enough you'll be able to see it on YouTube. I don't know if it's coming directly to YouTube. I'd imagine they do it like they did with the Vagos thing, where they put it out on Vice, let it run for a month or two, and then put it on YouTube. I did the Vagos thing, a lot of the Hells Angels stuff, talking about the Nordic War, talking about the Queen Mary, talking about different wars that they've had that have been pretty high profile. And then I did one on the Mongols, like I said, where I just let it be real. Like, the Mongols are the ones right now. Those are the dudes. Even with what happened in Florida, like, you have to know the whole story. And I know quite a bit of it, but they weren't wrong for what they did. Yeah. Yeah. That's the Vagos one. That's on Vice. About Jethro. I wish they would do a whole story on Jethro. I wish they would do a story on Fresno, Sonoma, but that's still there's still Art, there's still Chino, and there's still Robbie Huff. So, I don't know how much I'd be able to even talk on anything. Really, I can talk about the one case, but I can't because half of it's still being litigated because JoJo turned and told on himself. Rick ain't much from the shoulders. No, he's not. No, he's not. But I mean, we still hold the elbows. Rick don't play. I'm almost 50. Well, no, I'm not. I'm 45, but yeah. Julio Solario has been around since the beginning. I don't know. I've still got one or three broken hands left in my life, probably. You know. Yeah, Jethro. That. Rest in peace, Jethro. That's a man's man right there. That's a Hell's Angel all the way. And that dude. I'm still confused on why BA was hit in New York. Yeah. Manic Hispanic. That's a dope ass name. Uh, so was he. He went to his grave heartbroken. Yep. When he passed away, he was heartbroken, and you could see it. And to be there with him, talking about all that, like you just feel it, and it was bad, man. It was bad. He just couldn't get it. The critic, no, I'm not. I'm not even going to speak on that right now. I'm in a different group, clique, not motorcycle club, gang, whatever you want to call it. I guess it's well known. I'm an Aryan warrior out of Nevada. Yeah. Manic Hispanic for sure. He was solid. He was solid. He was just heartbroken. You know. Yeah, he was politicked on. BA was definitely politicked on by Johnny Merchant, for sure. I just think Johnny didn't like him, and can't take nothing from Johnny Merchant. His get down was biker for sure, but yeah, I think Johnny Merchant did him in, and they just jumped on him. Calvin, that's very, very factual. Jethro was the first one to pull out the banger, carrying the briefcase. You can see it. The critic, have I done any prison time? Yeah, I've done about 6 years. Uh, Jethro pulls out the banger. You know, he lays it on a couple of people first, and then Uh, here's the thing that I wish would have gotten into. They're talking about the clubs like they're sons of anarchy, right? Like there's a white van full of all kinds of nefarious things being driven by a prospect and followed by 10 bikes, and that's how they make their money, sending bangers off to the rest of the world or something. That's not how they make their money. They make their money on hats and t-shirts, and I told the Vice people that, but it's not nearly as sexy as what Hollywood or the past has been for their money making. Like they're not out there making, where entire charters are chipping in on money to like buy a key and then sending people out to go slang. No, it ain't like that. Get out of here. Like they sell hats and t-shirts. Right, Calvin, and I'm the only one who steps away from that line of thinking. They tried to call Romeo a coward for shooting Jethro, or well, there we go. Can't say that word, but whatever. Uh, it wasn't just his friend that took a round. It was his blood cousin, Boo, right? So Boo walks out the bathroom, and all hell is broken loose. And You have Jethro and so Bob V gets knocked out. He gets clubbed from behind. He's knocked out. You have oh God, what's his name? Why am I drawing a blank on his name? Villanueva. God. Anyway, sorry, I forgot your name, oh boy. So you have Jethro standing shoulder to shoulder with his club brother, and they're lighting off, right? Boo walks out the bathroom. They hit him. Boom, right? Well, Romeo smoothly just walks around the corner, catches them all making their move to get away, and he does what he does. Is it a coward move? It's the streets. This is how the streets work. You know, you can't come down on Romeo for doing what they do. This ain't the Revolutionary War. This ain't stand in front of each other, walk 5 paces and blast, you know? Like, this is the streets. If I can sneak you, I'm going to sneak you before I'm going to give you a chance to get me. Like, come on, man. Is it poor taste? Maybe. Is it wrong? Probably not. Because if Jethro would have seen him, what do you think Jethro would have done? They would have been in a blasting match. Like, it is what it is, man. And it just sucks that such a good dude was taken out. Because Jethro, I don't care. The other side, the Vagos will tell you Jethro was a good dude. But, you know, I mean, it is what it is. Good Lord. So, Calvin, I don't know. From the angles that I've seen, I don't know if Jethro was pointing it at somebody at that moment. But I do know that they had found a Vago over by himself when they had gone around that partition right next to that bar, and they were putting the boots to him pretty badly. And do I think Romeo? I mean, Romeo has been exonerated of it. So, speaking on Romeo, do I think he had that in his head? If something pops off, I'm gonna get this dude. Probably. That's the game. That's the game. Yeah. Banger, popper. It's you know, something that you work your index finger out with, and sometimes your arm if it's got enough grains in it. Do I think motorcycle clubs are played out the way gangbanging is? They peaked in the late 90s. Manic Hispanic, you do make a good point there. Are they played out? No, because the brotherhood for some is real strong, right? And the riding of the motorcycles and the going on the runs and all that, right? I think the blueprint is played out for the motorcycle club. The modern day motorcycle club will not survive eating their own and doing what they've been doing. What's up, Snoops, my dude? 1312. Man, I'm glad you're out, buddy. Here. Allegedly. Oh, let's see what Critic had to say then. Michael Francis interview with a Hell's Angel guy. Oh, yeah, that's George Christie. And, you know, me and George don't really get along or see eye to eye on anything in life. Dude's a weenie. Stockton, what's up? Nomad 209. What's happening? Hey, 1312 is my dude. Snoops is my guy right there. Y'all want to talk about a dude who got caught with everything. Oh my God. Anthony Merkovich. Oh, okay. Okay, I got you. You text me the other day? Yeah, my number's changed. Uh, damn. Should I give my number out right here? With 166 people? Probably not. I'll text you. Uh, I'll text you my number. I forget that I changed phone numbers when they tried to pull the old, Riley versus California. They tried to get into my phones and my brother's phones, and I was like, you know what? These phones are burnt. Let me go ahead and get a new one. D, right? I mean, yeah, that thing would just ring off the hook. It already rings off the hook, so I don't. Yeah. All right, guys. What have we been? Hour and a half. Oh, geez. All right. So it's what, 1:30? No, I'm way off. Jesus, it's 11:30. I'm retarded. Oh, can't say that either. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna chop this up and make a video out of it anyway. You know, Julio for sure. GT Gibbs, thank you for being there. You know, I'm sorry you've been going through what you've been going through, uh, and I've kind of been watching with my own craziness going on. Was coming through Blairsfield, Georgia, Georgia. The people were scared. Yeah, so it's like this. The people were scared when these bike clubs come rolling through, and some of them tear it up, but not. It's not like anything back in the '50s where they would just take the whole town over. Uh, you know, uh, uh, my daughter, I tell her all the time, if anybody approaches you that you don't know, and you see somebody with a bunch of tattoos that's riding a bike and they got a vest on, you go see him and you tell him, I don't know that guy, like because he's more apt to do something about it. But these days, I mean, you got hipsters. I don't know. The one thing I've never pretended to be is anything but what I am, right? And people say, "Oh, you're not part of a club, so how can you talk?" Man, miss me with all that shit because I am a gang member, or retired gang member, and I've done hella prison time, gained my respect in the streets, and then parlayed that through the contacts that I've made, basically from the decades that I've ran wild, uh, into telling my stories and other people's stories, and you can take a lot from me, but you'll never take that I'm a good storyteller, and I do my homework, and I get a hold of the people involved. I can speak on the Whitakers because I went there, right? Uh, I don't tell stories that I hear on the internet. That's the one thing you'll never catch me doing. I don't AI nothing. Uh, I do all my own editing on an iPhone. I've used an iPhone the whole time. I saw somebody said, "Is my phone stuck on East Coast?" Yeah, it is, because it's the old phone that I turned off, and I turned the locations obviously off on it and all that. And I did that when I was on the East Coast, so it just reads the East Coast time. Which is That's why you saw me look at my other phone that actually works to see what time it really was. That's cute. That's cute. You want to be the big spoon or the little spoon there, devil, Satan, whatever you want to call yourself? That's cute. Who is that? Is that Takashi 69 in the picture? I can't tell because it's so small. And that's what they say about you. Yep. Sons are staying out of the news. So Let me show you this. Everybody asked me about this hat, right? My white boy hat. I got that. I was in maybe Utah at the time, or still on the Colorado side, and I pulled off in this smaller town, and they were having something at the Harley Davidson there, and so I pulled off, right, and go say hi to everybody, whatever. And the Suns were the ones who were the predominant 1% club there, right, the Patch Club there. They were all so decent, nice. You know, they were good dudes. They were good dudes. I got nothing bad to say about them. Now I'm sure there's other people that have had vastly different experiences with them. You know, for me, those dudes were cool. They were nice. You know, nothing like hanging out. You go to Gray, that's Gray, clothing.com. Gray Soul. Gray Soul, Soul, clothing.com. And you can find this hat. And it's a dope hat. And they're not a sponsor or nothing. I'm just plugging them because I like their hat. You know, and I paid for it. You know, I didn't ask for no discount. They're out there making their money. Well, why would I? Oh, look at me! I want a discount. No, I just like their hat. Yeah, they're just like all the other clubs for sure. There's probably internal things that we'll never hear about, just like with every club. You know, but they're out there. I see them out there. But all right, guys, I'm gonna shut it down. We've kept like 170, 180 people in here the whole time, which is cool as hell. Thank you guys for coming to Vegas Profile Stories. I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time. And if you missed it, go back to the beginning and listen to Rob. You know, yeah. And rest in peace, Rob. I miss you very much, and it still hurts. So, all right, guys.